Christmas in March. Some people elated, some not so much. Jace, our brackets are not the best at all. If you actually look at the last call staff brackets, well, we have our director, Ken Machito, in first place. We have our producer, Liam Blaze, in second place. Jace, I think you're in third. I'm in last place in the last call staff. But, you know, a wise man once said, I made a great bracket, it just didn't play out. It didn't play out how I wanted it to. That is the way it's going for a lot of people this March. And we'll dive into that, but some huge news coming right here on campus. Coach Corsaro of the Greyhounds is going to move up to the Division I level for the right now IUPUI Cougars. Or Jaguars, I should say. And this is a big move for Coach Corsaro.
It's huge, and you could kind of sense it might be happening soon. He was an assistant at Purdue Fort Wayne, the Division I level, and now, you know, he returned to the Division I level with IUPUI. Probably the right move, too, because, I mean, it's just across town. He can say we're, you know, here in town. He's from Indianapolis, went to the University of Indianapolis, so he's been here. He knows the landscape very well. And, you know, with this last year's team probably being his best team he's had, and a phenomenal season, once again hosting the Midwest Regional, this is a home run hire for the Jaguars to get one of the best in Division II level.
I know they love him. He was great here, right? 2 back-to-back 1 seeds in the Midwest Regional, 2 back-to-back regular season GLBC championships. He produced 2 All-Americans in Kendrick Choa and Jesse Bingham. Those 2 graduate in Corsaro. He's going to take a step out of Uindy with them. So this is the end of an era for Uindy basketball. Jace, where do you see the team going to this point?
I mean, 4 years under head coach Paul Corsaro, some great accolades. Now the question is, do they stay in-house with the hire? Do they go elsewhere within the conference for the hire, elsewhere in Division II? That remains to be seen, but also can they retain some of that talent that Corsaro brought in during his tenure? The Jarvis Walker, you know, the Zach Zool, the Zelinskis. Can he keep that? Can the Greyhounds keep that talent in-house, staying here at Uindy? Because they're going to need it. Because, I mean, they lost 4 of their 5 starters this season because they were seniors. They're going to need this talent next season, but can they keep it after losing Paul Corsaro?
Sure to be a new look, but, man, what fun basketball it was in the 4 years under Coach Corsaro. I mean, ecstatic basketball, right?
100%.
Jesse Bingham, David Ejak, Kendrick, they're going up there. They're on highlight tapes across the country. I've been asking this for a couple weeks now. Would you have a favorite moment under head coach Corsaro that you look back at these Greyhounds and say, I'm glad I was a part of that?
I mean, I might just say the same moment I did last time. Winning that regional game, you know, avenging what happened in the last season when they were the 1 seed, lost to the 8 seed McKendree Bearcats, beating William Jewell, a team who had your number all season long. It was a big moment, but obviously there was those highlights across those 2 years I've been here at Uindy that there's just been so many fun moments, you know, traveling with the team, talking with Corsaro, you know, one-on-one. It's just been a great 2 years I've been with him.
And I like to go back to the McKendree series this year.
Yeah.
When you look to last year, obviously that's a team that beats you in the Midwest Regional, and then you come and wipe the floor with them this year. That's big. I think that really goes to show how much this team improved from last year to this year. Obviously, that back-to-back Midwest Regional 1 seed, back-to-back GLBC champs. And we're excited for Coach Corsaro, and we're excited for UIndy basketball heading in to next year. But now we hop to that Division I level. First, the women's bracket. It's going just how a lot of people would expect, right? South Carolina.
He's pretty top-heavy in the women's game.
South Carolina, they're going on a tear.
Jeez.
Iowa, they're going to go on their tear. UConn, they're going to do your thing. And then you're looking at that bottom left part of the bracket where we saw a great game last night at Iowa State and Stanford. That one went into overtime. Cameron Brink fouled out. Iowa State's
Stanford got
player.
lucky to win that one. You know, Stanford usually see those 1 and 2 seeds make it every time out of the first weekend. But Stanford got lucky in that game. They were down late and Brink fouled out. They had to play without her in overtime, but they were able to hold off Iowa State.
Yeah, Cyclones had a great first round. They had a freshman drop 40 in her tournament debut. She will be back, and this women's bracket is scheduled to be some fun. As we head into the men's bracket, we mentioned that Jace and I aren't doing so hot. Ken Machino back in the production room. she's having a pretty solid March alongside Brayton Bowen up here on the 3rd floor. You might know him if you listen to HD3 Uindy Radio at all. He has Purdue winning it all. Kenna has Tennessee. We'll break down a couple of those teams as we look at who is going to make a trip to the Elite Eight. And I think Matt Painter broke it down very well in the fact that everyone who plays in March is a good team.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Everybody.
At this point in the season, it's the top 16 teams in the nation. These are the teams that are hot at the right time. These are the teams that have that NBA level talent. And I mean, you look across the bracket, there's really no underdogs left. I mean, NC State's the lowest seed, the 11th seed, but they're still from a Power 5 conference. So all these teams left have phenomenal talent across the board. That's
the winners of the ACC as well. So it's going to be like our primetime pick'em with the NBA, but we're going to break down each Sweet 16 game, and obviously the winner of those hop in to the Elite Eight. This is big time to this point. So we'll just go back and forth in this scenario. I guess I'll take the first round. Obviously, UConn, San Diego State.
National championship rematch from last year.
Familiar with each other in March, but we're going to get into this later. UConn, they have been absolutely dominant. Dominant, Jason. I don't think San Diego State, while they're a talented team, I don't think they do anything against UConn.
It's been a minute since I've seen a men's team this dominant. UConn, 100% is going to win this basketball game. I do like San Diego State a lot and what they've done these last few seasons out of the Mountain West, but UConn is just a different animal at this point in March.
They've had a great season at this point, San Diego State, but it's bye-bye come that game against UConn. And as we head into the next game, we're going to see Big Ten,
this
Illinois,
is what I'm excited for.
Take on Big 12 and Iowa State. Cyclones versus the Illini. Jace, we'll start with you this time. What are you thinking?
Both of these teams are clicking right now. But when this team is clicking, they're better than anyone else in the nation, even UConn. And that is the Illini.
Wow.
Illini play a great brand of basketball. What they did in the last round, dominance, pure dominance the entire game.
Look good.
If they can do that against Iowa State, Iowa State's looked iffy at some points in the last round as well. Give me the Illini in this one, and well, you may be an upset, but I think they're the better team overall.
And I'll tell you what, they have a great pick and roll duo, and I think that's something we'll get into later as we talk about March Madness winning these games. Need a guard, need a big. The Illini have them both, but
oh no!
But we're talking about Iowa State here. This is a great team.
You know what? This is funny. I picked Iowa State in my bracket, in one of my brackets at least. I mean, I still picked Houston overall to win it, but still Iowa State I haven't gone far in most every bracket. But I would be an upset every here and there.
You might remember in my bracket, these were the champions.
Yeah.
To this point, they're still going to be the champions.
Okay.
I think. Obviously, that might be a stretch at this point because anything can happen. We've seen the best and the worst from them in just this month. But Iowa State, with their elite offense, elite defense, I think they play both sides of the ball better than any team in the tournament. And that's why
I just don't trust them yet. I mean, they haven't been here before, Iowa State. They're not usually accustomed to being in this spot, the Cyclones.
And you know, that can be a good thing. It can be a not so good thing.
But both teams are conference champions, so I mean they've already won a tournament this season.
Iowa State may just be cocky enough as we head into the next game, and obviously two great teams again. North Carolina, Alabama, where I'm thinking the 1 seed's going to take it. I think Alabama, they're a freight train offensively. They love to get down the floor, play some fast-paced basketball, but to this point, I think that train runs out of steam, runs out of coal, runs out of fuel. North Carolina and R.J. Davis.
You look at Bama, their offense, one on top of the nation. Their defense, not so much. We've seen time and time again that these teams don't do well in March. Look at Kentucky. They fell to Oakland. And once again, that offensive game plan just will not work against UNC and R.J. Davis. So give me the Tar Heels in this one. And what might be a close game to begin with, Alabama, like you said, they're gonna run out of steam at some point. And it's bound to happen, I think, here against one of the best teams in the nation.
That's another 1 seed winning against 4-seeded Alabama. And now we're going to look at a 6-seed game, and it's Clemson and Arizona.
Clemson proved me wrong. I picked New Mexico to go to the Elite Eight.
A lot of people did.
Clemson was great to begin the season out of the ACC. They faltered towards the end, but they're finding their game once again. These Tigers have looked better than ever so far. I mean, they just took out Baylor with relative ease.
And this is where I'm kind of switching up on my bracket. I didn't have either of these teams.
I know.
To this point.
No,
I had Arizona getting beat second round. But I think Clemson's going to take it.
Wow.
I do think Clemson's going to take it for similar reasons as Alabama, right? I see.
That's me.
Hey, look, I'm glad we agree. Or, well, we don't agree,
didn't agree.
actually. But I think it's a similar situation to Alabama, right? They have that offense powered by Caleb Love, but I don't think a one-trick pony gets it done come March.
I think we're going to get the matchup that I'm looking forward to the most. Caleb Love versus UNC in the Elite Eight. Arizona also has their days, on and off days, but so far they've been on, and I think they're going to continue that against Clemson. Clemson will provide a tough test, but I want to see Caleb Love versus UNC in the Elite Eight.
The thing I like about Clemson is they play big-time basketball when big-time basketball is needed. And it's not necessarily going to be your lobs from half court that you might see from Arizona, but it's going to be the free throws at the end of the game. It's going to be the stops to close things out against good teams like Arizona, and that's why it's going to be Clemson as we head into another one-seed bout, Houston and Duke.
Ooh, what a game.
So Houston will start with me this time. At the 1 seed, I had them going all the way to the championship. I still do. I think Houston, while they gave us a scare last round, I still think their prowess defensively is better than any other team in the tournament.
Yeah.
And I think that bids well against a team that's been to that point in Duke. Obviously, under new management, Coach K out of business. You have some freshmen incoming, Jared McCain.
Jared McCain, what a guy. What a shooter. This guy was lights out the other day. He hit 6 threes to begin the game in a row. I think he hit 8 to finish the game off, and they just tore up James Madison.
Looks like a lot of fun. So Houston, who did you take in that?
So in my original bracket, I have the Cougars winning it all. But watching Houston against A&M played a great game in that one. I knew it was going to be a close game because they played earlier this year, and they played close earlier this year. Houston, I've been so iffy on them. They're great defensively, but can they get that offensive basketball when needed to do so? And Duke, they're getting hot now.
They are getting hot.
Towards the end of the year, they lost a few in a row, but they got one win. They got a close win against Vermont, and then after that, you can tell it's clicked. They just took down the Dukes like it was nothing. And now, up against Houston, this is going to be probably the best game of the Sweet 16 in my opinion. But the Blue Devils, Jared McCain, they're going to win this one.
And now we're going to, I think, the lowest seed left in the tournament. Yeah. And the next game, NC State taking on 2-seeded
and they
Marquette.
Have probably my favorite player in the tournament left, DJ Burns.
Well, what do you think? What do you think happens, Jace?
NC State, give me the upset pick. There's bound to be one, high seed, one 10-plus seed in the Elite Eight every year, it seems like. And I think this is the team this year, NC State, and their center, DJ Burns.
They have the makeup.
That dude is legendary already. I mean, they won 5 in a row in 5 days to make the tournament by winning the ACC. They wouldn't have been in this tournament if it hadn't been for the ACC for winning 5 games in 5 days. And they're still hot. They've won 2 more since. So what's to say they can't beat Marquette? Marquette, who the team that's looked iffy so far in their 2 games.
They have the makeup to win tournament basketball. They have shooters around a good big guy. They're going to the Elite Eight. NC State looks good.
Okay, wow, we both went NC State.
NC State looks good. I am happy every time I watch them play. Honestly, I love their brand of basketball. I love DJ Burns. And now we're going into 2 games that I think we might agree on. I think
we'll see.
I guess we will see. Purdue is going to beat Gonzaga. I know I kind of undersold Gonzaga coming into the tournament, but Purdue, they look good. 2 dominating wins. I think they might be over the hump, but we'll talk about that later. What do you think?
Bulldogs.
Wow.
Listen.
Okay, Jace. Okay. There might be some bias there.
No. Okay, maybe like 10% bias. Call it 20% bias in this one. Because, I'm an IU fan. You see the red going on here. I don't like Purdue. But, Purdue has tore up their first 2 opponents. It wasn't even close. They just took down, they took down Utah State like it was nothing. But Gonzaga, I was distrusting of them coming into the tournament. I thought they would lose that first round to McNeese, but they tore them up. And then they took down Kansas with relative ease. Obviously, Kansas with no McCullough. But Gonzaga, they have that guard play that I really think could take down Purdue in this one. But it's all about how can they guard Zach Edey. How can they match up with Zach Edey? It's going to be a tough test. But if they can do just enough, it might give them over the hump.
Man, I thought we would agree on that, but we don't as we head into...
I think we'll agree on this next one, though.
Our final game in Creighton and Tennessee. Creighton, a sneaky 3 seed. A lot of people had them as a dark horse to win the entire thing. They'll play a 2 seed in Tennessee. And Jace, between these 2 squads, who do you got?
Rocky Top. Give me the Vols to beat the Blue Jays in this one. They have Dalton connected, one of the best players in the nation, if not the best player in the nation, and this is going to be a great game. But I just once again don't trust the Blue Jays because every year they're in the scenario and they lose it every single time. They just can't get over the Sweet 16 Elite 8 hump to get to that Final Four. They have a great team, don't get me wrong, but not against the SEC powerhouse of Tennessee.
We're seeing fist bumps behind the camera. We're seeing fist bumps in the production room. And we'll give one more fist bump here. The Vols are going to take this one against Creighton. I think they just had the NBA star power. I mean, I might be wrong in that regard, but I do think, no, it's definitely going to be Tennessee.
Okay.
It's the star power on their squad is tough, and that is going to round out the pick'em segment for the Elite Eights. While we hop in to 2 questions I have for you, Jace. First, we're going to start with UConn. It was the first game that we broke down. Can anybody beat UConn?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. I mean, UConn, they won it all last year, and they almost have a brand new squad this season, but they look even better. And how about that guy, Donovan Kleeman? That guy is phenomenal. 14,
and 8 blocks. 8 blocks. We could just watch this guy work defensively, and that would be enough. This guy does everything on the basketball court, and I think he may be a top 3 player in the entire tournament. And you look at who they have next. On the other side of the bracket, I see Iowa State, North Carolina, maybe Tennessee, Purdue that beat them. Are there any names that stick out to you?
I mean, I think UConn, if they get out of this region, they won't be stopped. Because, I mean, this is a tough region. You look at the other part of the region, it's 2 conference champions, Illinois and Iowa State. But UConn has that home floor advantage with these games being in Boston. They're going to have that home crowd behind them, so I think it should be fairly easy to get out of that. And I don't see either UNC or Arizona beating them, so I think UConn, as long as they get past these next 2 games, is going to be a definitely bound title team. Yeah. But then once they reach that, then you might see Houston. Then you might see a great basketball game. Granted, it's March. Anyone can beat anybody. But at this point, UConn almost looks unstoppable. Right now, I think they're going to be your champion back-to-back for the first time since 06-07 with Florida.
And I think you need a defense stack up with UConn if you want to beat them.
Yeah.
Teams that I see with that,
Houston,
Iowa State, and Houston. So those 2 squads, I still have Iowa State winning it all.
See, Iowa State worries me if they face UConn in Boston. Iowa State with that defense could provide a real test for the Huskies.
And then we'll move on now to an Indiana school in Purdue. And it seems like we ask this question every year, especially in the Zach Edey era. Is Purdue a legitimate championship contender?
All right, I'll put all bias aside here. Yes, 100%, they are the real deal. I do think in my head that they'll beat Gonzaga. I don't want that to be true, obviously. But yes, this team is the real deal. They have the guard play. Zach Edey's playing like he's going to be a lottery draft pick in the NBA draft the way he's playing at the center position. I mean, no one can stop him. He had 30 and 20 in the first round game. Like, how are you meant to stop Zach Edey? This dude's 7'5", and he just does everything on the floor that you'd want him to do. I mean, Purdue has the squad, the guards, even the reserves as well off the bench that can provide that spark when needed to be. Purdue's locked in right now, 2 straight blowouts. This team could make a run to possibly win it all, finally.
That's what we're thinking. Finally could be the answer for Purdue. Coming up on Last Call, we broke down our brackets. We'll move to the NBA. We forget that they're still playing important basketball this time of year. And we're going to bring on a special guest and Charles Foster. That up next on Last Call.
Emma Donnan, elementary and middle school. Discover the Donnan difference. A school where you can celebrate others. Come together as a community. Be a part of a learning environment where students and teachers are appreciated. Emma Donnan, a culture that can't be beat, that's going onward together. A school filled with love. Emma Donnan.
I love my school.
Welcome back to Last Call. We mentioned college basketball at the D2 level, the D1 level, obviously March Madness, and now we're to the NBA, where it kind of gets overlooked during March, but this is important basketball being played both in the East and the West. Obviously the East, the Boston is kind of running away with it, but we'll get to that later. We'll start with the Pacers. How about a loss last night, 150 to 145. This is the first time in LeBron James' career where he's been on a team that scored 150 in regulation.
Is it really? That's really, I've never heard that stat.
Yeah. It was crazy, right? And once again, I turn to you, Chuck, and we just bring up the problem. The Pacers could not guard a traffic cone.
The Pacers cannot defend. That's been their problem. They can put up 145, but they can't. They give up 150. I mean, you're giving up record numbered points for LeBron here, and this was supposed to be a revenge game after they got knocked out in the tournament final. So it was. I know a lot of Pacers fans were really hoping for that one, and they can't D up.
I mean, these last 6 games, I think they would have had the 6th defensive rating in the NBA. They had figured it out until this one. Everyone was posting about, hey, they've gotten the defense figured out, and then they go and do this against LeBron James and AD. The problem is they can't guard Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is a severe problem every game he plays against the Pacers. You look once again at him yesterday, he had 36 points and 16 rebounds. He had 18 and 6 in the first quarter. The Pacers just cannot figure out a way to guard AD. He did the same thing in the in-season tournament final. He did the same thing here. Yeah. The Pacers just cannot guard Anthony Davis at all.
We forget the guy's a monster because, against 29 teams in the NBA, he's good. And then he plays the Pacers, and this guy is Wilt Chamberlain reincarnated, right? And what are you supposed to do against a guy who drops 18 and 6 in the first quarter, like you said, Jace? There's not much you can do. But look at this Pacers stat line, and there's still that question of, Chuck, I'll turn to you. Tyrese Halliburton had just 12 and 10, which is solid numbers. They're not bad, but this guy was playing at an all-star caliber level. He was in MVP conversations to start the year. Where's he been?
I think the biggest issue is Tyrese Halliburton at the time, while he's still figuring things out with, especially a new look roster, playing alongside a star, is he's still a point guard. And I feel like people put him on this pedestal whenever he had his entire platform by himself. He was the only one scoring, he was the only one passing. If he wasn't on the floor, the Pacers lose. Now it's a little bit different where they actually have a team around him, and he's starting to kind of like play more into his role. I like that we're still seeing the 10 assists, and I think that, to me, that shows that he's not really struggling. He's just playing more of a point guard role, which means less scoring.
And that makes sense because, as I turn about Pascal Siakam, 36 and 12 on the night, which kind of had a grimace on your face to that answer. What are you thinking about that situation?
I was thinking more about Charles and Halliburton and stuff. Halliburton is still taking the same shots he was before that. He's just not hitting them anymore. The other day, I think it was 0 for 9 from 3 at one point. This dude just has lost his shot. Ever since the hamstring injury, he's looked like a different player, in all honesty. Watching Halliburton play doesn't look as explosive as he was before that hamstring injury. He's still a very good player passing and whatnot, but shooting, he's just lost his shot. It's unfortunate to see, too, because this guy was a phenomenal shooter beforehand. But since then, he's had one good game, maybe shooting-wise, but he's just been on the average like 6 to 12 points a night.
But Pascal Siakam, I mentioned that 36 and 12. I think that lends to Charles' argument in the way that the Pacers might want to go to Pascal as that one option. Do you think that might be the right move?
I mean, we've seen that before. The Raptors tried to do it after they lost Kawhi. Pascal, to me, has always kind of been a second option.
Yeah.
But it's hard because Tyrese is also, to me, isn't a championship level number 1 option. I think he is a good point guard that would be phenomenal along another guard. But when it comes to being that guy that's going to put up 30 and 10 consistently, especially in a playoff series, we have yet to see that. We're going to get to see that now that they've clinched their play-in spot, we hope. So I don't trust him fully yet to be that guy.
It's funny you mentioned how he was good. He might be great paired with another good guard. Well, since Buddy Hield left, we kind of correlate the drop in efficiency, the drop in...
And also with Mathurin's injury. That was a big killer for the Pacers with Mathurin. Because Mathurin was supposed to be that second superstar in the squad, and he was beginning to really become consistent, and then boom, he's out for the season.
Pacers, where do they go from here? I guess that's the question.
Well, they're right in the thick of things in the Eastern Conference. The goal is now to avoid the play-in tournament. That's the main goal. You want to avoid the play-in because that's just one-off games. If you lose 2, you're done. You're out. No playoffs for you. You want to avoid that so you can get that 7-game series under your belt to move into the future, because that gets you some experience for Halliburton and other players on this Pacers squad that haven't been to the playoffs before.
I agree. And as you mentioned, the play-in tournament, we'll take a look at the Eastern Conference standings. It's still Boston's to give up. Charles, I know you watch a lot of Boston. What makes them great?
I mean, this once again, I personally was weary coming into the season because our starting lineup is phenomenal. But if you look at the bench, that's where they kind of started to look like they would struggle. I thought they would be mostly a playoff team, but they played phenomenal in the regular season. Once the playoff comes and they kind of dwindle down their bench to 7 to 8 people, I don't know who's going to stop them because they have every last check mark on what makes a good NBA team checked off.
And you look at 2, 3, 4, Jace. I think that is up for grabs for just about anybody.
I mean, Milwaukee and Cleveland, I think are going to be 2 or 3 flip-flop possibly. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is just chaos from the rest of the way out. I mean, there's like a 3-game separation between the Knicks and the Sixers. And that's the real argument, is who's going to be those 2 teams that have to play in that play-in tournament.
I think the East is fun to watch, at least after that one spot.
Minus Boston. Minus Boston.
Yeah, minus Boston.
Boston
right?
just ahead of everybody else. That's everybody else.
Let's go out there and play against the East All-Stars. But as we move to the West now, much more competitive on that side. The Nuggets at 50-21 on the year. They're currently at that one spot, but they've been trading with Minnesota and the Thunder all year. So I think that's up for almost anybody to grab. Would you say the same?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And if we're going to talk about anyone to grab any spot at all, let's look at Houston, who's been creeping up on Golden State here.
They've won 8 in a row.
Has a very strong possibility of getting knocked out of the play-in by Houston, or even LA if they were to drop a few. That could be concerning if you're the Warriors, because this is a team that if they make the playoffs, they're a threat, but they might not make the playoffs because there's a hot Houston team right behind them.
Houston has won 8 in a row. They've looked great. They have great players. They just hadn't put together yet. I mean, there was still kind of a lot of new faces coming into the squad. It took them a while to put it together. Now they're figuring things out there in Houston. Do I think they'll get over the Warriors? I don't, but they're going to make it competitive as the season comes to a close for sure.
And we have a question incoming. Which Western Conference team outside the top 4 has the best finals chances? So you look at teams outside the top 4. That's Pelicans, Suns, Kings, Dallas, Lakers, Warriors, and even the Rockets that we mentioned. I'll look at you, Jace. I think you said you had an answer.
Hold on, now I kind of backtracked on that for a second. There's 2 teams in between here, so I'll begin with Charles.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with Dallas. I think I've talked about them since the trade deadline. They've been my favorite dark horse team because for Dallas, they have this. You have Luka, who's one of the best playoff performers right now. He's played phenomenal. You have Kyrie Irving, who's a championship winner. And then they picked up and fixed some of their issues with Gafford and Washington. This team looks like they could be any top 3 to 4 seed. I think that they're, in my opinion, they're my dark horse.
They're the ones I'm between, but I'm going to go with Phoenix because they have the talent, the KD, the Bradley Beal, all that talent on that, the Devin Booker. They have the talent on that squad. I'm still surprised they're sitting down in 6th with all that talent, but I mean, we've seen before that super teams just don't always work. I mean, they've worked fine. They're going to be a playoff team probably, and they can probably take down any like if they match up with Minnesota, what they are right now, I could see them beating them because the talent level is just there for Phoenix.
Well, you guys might call me crazy. I think Sacramento.
Okay.
I think Sacramento with De'Aaron Fox, with probably the most underrated player in the league, and Domantas Sabonis.
100%.
I feel like they have postseason experience too.
Do.
They played the Warriors
7-game series
very well last year, and they were, a championship caliber team. So to think that De'Aaron Fox is starting to come into his element alongside a great big man, I think Sacramento is a team outside that top 4 at the currently 7th
I'm more
spot.
interested in the West in the playoffs. This is going to be so much fun to watch. The Western Conference, the Thunder, the Timberwolves, 2 new teams that we aren't used to seeing be atop the Western Conference. This is going to be a phenomenal playoff run for the Western Conference compared to the East. Compared to the East, which Boston might just run through.
I hope.
Should be a lot of fun as we begin to wrap things up here on Last Call. We did have some baseball planned. We're looking into opening day in just a couple days. That's going to be fun. We're going to have tons of Reds coverage, Cubs coverage, possibly some White Sox, depending on how they do this season. You never know with these teams, but I'm excited for the MLB as well. We have big moves in the Ohtani. Obviously, Braves, Dodgers are always going to be the teams to watch, but we'll have all of that coverage here on Last Call when the time comes. Thank you.